My name is Amanda Wilkins, and I'm the horticulture agent here in Lee County. And the Garden Life Lunch and Learn series is an opportunity for the community to get snapshots of really highly concentrated gardening know-how in a very short amount of time while they're eating lunch. And today we are going to be talking about the Lee Regional Fair. And for those of y'all who are watching, in the crowd is all of our not all the Lions Club members, but a lot of Lions Clubs members who work at the Lee Regional Fair. And I wanted to highlight the fair because there is the exhibition hall, and it's an opportunity for the community to come out and show out all the cool fruits and vegetables and flowers and plants that they are growing in their own yard and show off to the community how well they can grow their plants. And I was very fortunate. I was hired in August of 2022. And within a month, the regional fair was happening. It happens the first weekend of September, or you enter the first weekend in September, and the fair is usually the second week in September. And it was really cool to see how many people came out to enter the fair and just see what everybody's got going on. But I knew that it could be bigger. And so I'm throwing down a challenge to the community, and I'm glad that the Lions are here. We are talking about winning blue ribbons. I won quite a few blue ribbons for my stuff in my house. I was pretty proud of myself, and there were quite a few folks who had never participated in the fair who won blue ribbons this past year. So I know that we'll have quite a few more folks trying for those blue ribbons. So I've done a few housekeeping items, but I just really wanted to welcome the Lions Club. We're really glad to have you guys as a community partner, and really happy that NC Cooperative Extension can support the Lions as partners in the regional fair and help with the judging and organizing things and just being there. And we do have some Lions members who are also master gardeners, so that's very cool. I'm going to hand it over to Bob real quick, and he's going to do the history, and then I'll hand it over to Susan Conlon, and she will do the how to enter on fairentry.com. And then I'm going to go over a little bit of like how you can prepare your plants. So Bob, I'm going to hand this to you and give me a second to switch over to your presentation. Bob, why don't you introduce yourself while I'm doing that?
I'm Bob Nelson. I'm this year's fair manager. And while I get that title, it couldn't be done without the help of a lot of people who put in a lot of hours and a lot of work to make the fair come about. And Amanda, we're pleased to be here and representing the Sanford Lions Club, and just want to share with you the Lee Regional Fair. It's an annual event that we celebrate the culture and heritage of our farming community here in Lee County. And if for those that are in the audience, you get 2 free tickets to the fair this year. And a little humor, very little humor, I suspect. A little bit about the history. Fairs go back a long, long ways. Even before Christ was born, about 500-600 years. And it was usually built around commerce. Our fair, the Lee Regional Fair now, it was Lee County Fair when it first started, was first held back in 1913. And it's the result of a group of individuals that came together and formed a corporation. They put in $500 each. I'm not sure how many shareholders there were. It was referred to as the Lee County Agricultural Society. They sold advertisement in a little small catalog, and the money went to help with the various schools and the ag programs. That was the primary source of revenue. It was discontinued during WW1, and again at the beginning of the Great Depression, it was restored in 1933. I'm not sure where it was held. I've been told that along Hawkins Avenue in Carthage, down where Old City Hall was, and at least on one occasion, across the street from where Prairie Brothers Tire used to be. But it was at the Temple ballpark for about 10 years. The Lions became steward of it in 1938. After World War II, the club began acquiring property out on Colon Road. And that was a smart move. The only problem is we should have acquired more because we have a parking issue now with the size of the club. 2008, we changed the name to the Lee Regional Fair. And 2017, as we'll talk about a little bit later on, we brought fair entry into the mix. And then 2 years ago, we were able to bring in credit cards, which is very slowly catching on. But more and more people carry credit cards than carry cash. And there's a picture of the first fair. It was back then, guys, it was a 3-day fair. It went from November 13th, 14th, and 15th. You can see it on there. And I'm not exactly sure whether we're looking at Hawkins right now or whether we're looking at Carthage. But this is not far from where the railroad house is, from what I understand. And this is where it's currently located. There's 3 parcels out there that make up it right at 26 acres. And I think it's on the tax books right now for about $1.8 million. As I said earlier, the fair would not come about without the fair committee. There's some of the folks that participate in each one of those, but probably the media has been one area that we have really been able to expand. And social media in particular, it's just exploding. And of course, we couldn't get along without our advisory committee from the extension office. We've got a committee that works on gates, the exhibit halls, outside vendors. We used to sell ads in a catalog, and because of going online with so much stuff, we pretty much have moved away from that. Lions Field is, if you notice the buildings over here on this side and head towards the soccer field, Lions Field is down there right along the parcel line. That has been a new addition over the years, over the last, I'm gonna say 10 years, where we started off and disassembled a tobacco barn and moved it from off of Tramway Road over there and reassembled it again. And since then have added the blacksmith shop. We've got the seascape that comes out there and puts on a demonstration on cutting logs. We've got a general store out there, and then most recently a museum where we've had several items that have been donated from folks around the county, recognizing the importance of tobacco. And if you think about the history of tobacco, it's probably has touched everybody in the state of North Carolina in some manner. And one of the rides, so if the swings will be down at the bottom, just remember they get up way on up in the sky there. One of the things we are most concerned about the fair is safety. And we contract with the Sanford Police Department to be our first responders. And that has worked very, very well. These men know what they're doing. And as always, if you see something, say something. This is Mayor Roy Stewart back when we had milking competition, and he was probably mayor at that time, if I'm not mistaken, but quite a look on his face. Again, one of the competitions that we have is the diaper derby, and you can see our contestants lining up and getting ready to go. And then another one is the tobacco looping, and we actually cure tobacco out there during the week of the fair. It's a working model. There's some of our fair advisory committee members there from a few years back, but we really rely on them to give us some good suggestions about how to improve the fair. And one of our ribbon cutting from a while back, sadly, there's only 2 of those gentlemen that are still living. The Lee Regional Fair happens to be a member of the International Association of Fairs and Expos I'm gonna say a nation standpoint, and then the North Carolina Association of Agricultural Fairs. And the biggest thing is we have an opportunity to come together as a group of fairs and discuss things that work and things that don't work and what changing conditions and how we can make our fairs better. And then we have a very nice scholarship that comes out of the North Carolina Association. This year, I think it was $4,000 that was awarded to one young lady going to, can't remember, somewhere in the western part of the state. That probably the most used item out there is a corn shucker. We have a gentleman that brings that with Seascape and all this corn, and the kids shuck it and he collects it and uses it as deer feed. And our workforce on any given night during the fair, we probably have about 75 people over there. And it's hustle and bustle. The Lions Club spends most of their week out there, along with our spouses. And in addition, well, some of our children too. And then we've actually got Lions that have grandchildren that come out there and work, myself included. And then the rest of it is made up with volunteers. And on our website, there's a place where you can contact us. And if you're interested in being a volunteer at the fair, we'd love to hear from you, and just send us an email and we'll find a place to put you to work. This past year, we're really proud that our 2022 fair swept all the awards in our category. In terms of fair size, fairs from 15,000 to 40,000, I guess it is. Every one of them. Of course, the one everyone really wants to get is the Image Award. And they only award that once every 2 years. Well, you can only win it one time. You can't win it 2 times in a row. At one time, we had a tobacco spitting contest out there, and thought we'd try and gross everybody out when we do that. Our midway is with Big Rock, and they travel primarily between Michigan, Ohio, Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Kentucky, but they actually homestead in Florida. And if you remember, that's what a midway looks like during a hurricane. That was a sad year for the Sanford Lions Club. A lot of people wonder where the proceeds go from the fair. And this kind of shows you. Brighter Vision is a statewide organization with Lions Club of North Carolina, but we have a cottage down at Boys and Girls Home that we support. Scholarships that go out annually, as well as during the pageant. Our Christmas cheer is to help out individuals during Christmas time that are visually impaired. We help with a Melvin Jones Fellowship. We've got our own district goals, Salvation Army and CUOC. On Sundays at the fair, if you've noticed, you just show up with 5 cans of food and you get in free. The outreach mission is a new not-for-profit that, well, I'm not sure that it's new. It's been around for a while, but we're trying to help with the homeless situation. And then, of course, Camp Dogwood Helping Hands, and there's several other organizations in there that we help. I'll give you some idea of just how the attendance works at the fair. As you can see, the best day to come to the fair is either Wednesday or Thursday. You get to ride the rides a heck of a lot longer. And when you think about the cost of admission, that sort of shows where it goes, with about 10% of the gate admission going to outreach and what have you. It's very expensive to put on a fair. And that's what we look like on Sunday. I'll step aside, and Miss
Okay.
Susan, if you'll.
So, Susan, I'm gonna hand it over to you so you can drive and show us the different things we got going on.
All right, now let's see if I can do this without a mouse. But that's all right. I think I can. The part that I wanted to talk about is how to enter the fair. And we no longer come and fill out paperwork and all that there at the fair. We do have fair entry form, an entry form for you to fill out, and then fair entry online. And we really encourage everybody to go to fair entry online. And when you go to fair entry online, you have to create an account if you have not created your own account. And so you will find your fair. You'll go to fair entry, where we had it right here. and it says find your fair. You click on that, you get this page, you put up the Lee Regional Fair, and there's the Lee Regional Fair. And you click on that, and then you're going to be asked to create a login, just like you would do if you're going to buy something from LLD or Lands End or any of those other places. So we're really used to logging in. And once you get logged in, then you can pull up the hierarchy and you can see what you want to, what you have to enter. You can learn what category it goes in. I think this might be a new area here, this search flowers. You can see a list of the flowers will come up and what category they are in. So if you're looking at flowers and plants, you can click on that. And there's all the flowers and plants. I thought that was pretty cool. I think that must be a new tool here on this. So I wanted to go back to the hierarchy there. All right. In our Lee Regional Fair, we have all these departments that are listed there. The arts, the baked goods, booths, canning, contests, farm equipment, field crops, flower plants, anything you're going to enter in the fair. If you can't find it in one of those categories, let me know so we can put it in there, a category. But let's just say, Amanda, if you don't mind, I'll just go down here to your horticulture. And I know we have upgraded your horticulture and we're using 2022, but it's upgraded. So, but I'm just going to use this one. And you can see how it breaks down into divisions. And then if you had fruit to enter, there's the fruit you can enter. You have apples and you scroll to the side and what type of apples? Okay, you got Fuji apples that you have grown, and you scroll a little further and you can see that adults can enter the fair in Fuji apples in our fair. So that's the hierarchy is how you get to see what we have. We also have the hierarchy in a fair catalog up on the web page, fair web page, which looks like this. There's our fair web page, and within that will be links to everything about the fair catalog. So then I also want to just highlight, once you have entered your item in the fair, it goes to our administrator. The administrator approves that entry. And then if you enter well in advance, she'll print those cards out in advance. So you just come in, you say, I've already entered. We have your tickets possibly printed for you already. And it moves real fast. Johnny and Preston will tell you how, once you get your tickets, what you have to do. Then your items are on display. We go through all the judging contests. We have judges that come in. Extension will bring in judges. Now, if you want to keep up with what's going on at the fair, the Lee Regional Fair website is the best place that we will post winners and activities and look forward to today and what have you. I'm hoping to work with the Leo group so that they can get the Instagram going, and take care of that social media for us. And then we also have the Sanford Lions Club website. And if you click on the Lee Regional Fair link that's on the website, it will take you to the website. There you go. This year's theme for the fair is Love This Fair. Last year's theme was This Is Your Fair, but this year it's Love This Fair. Looking forward to having you come and be a part of that.
So yeah, I know that when I won last year, I used my money to buy compost for my garden. You know, pay back into all the work that I did to make all my plants grow. So as Susan was saying, there are lots of different entries. They span crafts, farm equipment, There's a canning section, food preservation. There's all sorts of really cool, nifty categories that you can enter items into. But because this is the Garden Life Lunch and Learn series, they're definitely focusing more on the plants. And it's really cool to work with Avon Upchurch, who has been running the horticulture section. Lord, Avon, how long have you been running the horticulture section? A few years? Several years. Okay, we're not going to put a number on it.
When God said, "Let there be light," Abram was duty electrician.
Oh, man. Well, Abram is one of our the extension master gardeners in Lee County, and he is also a line. And he runs this section, and it was a lot of fun to work with him last year. Unfortunately, he caught COVID last year, so we limped along, but I think we managed pretty good. But the extension master gardeners assist the judges who come in and judge after all the horticulture entries come in, and all of the different agents in the Cooperative Extension office recruit judges, and they recruit volunteers to support the judges. So you know that it's not just anybody walking in off the street judging your entries. It is people who have qualifications to actually be able to judge things. So this past year, we had Amanda Watson from Watson's Nursery and Marty Feller of Martha June's Flower Farm judging our horticulture exhibits. And I can't think of any more qualified people. Well, I can't think of a few, but it was really cool to work with them, and all the master gardeners showed up and showed out and assisted the judges. And really, we were done almost by 1 o'clock, which I think was a record for considering how many entries that we had. And you can see Marty working with Faye and Linda here. So the judges go around and they judge the different categories, and the master gardeners make sure that they're looking at all the right plants and make sure everything's labeled appropriately. And I kind of float around and make sure to provide some taxonomic commentary to make sure everything is really in the right spot, because we want people to be judged fairly, and we're comparing apples to apples and so on and so forth, or maybe zinnias to zinnias in this case. And for the horticulture section, there's kind of 3 main areas. There's the fruits and vegetables, the potted and container plants, and the cut flowers and cut foliage. And it's going to look a little different on fair entry, but these are kind of the main areas. And here's some things to just keep in mind as you're getting your plants ready for the fair. So for potted and container plants, there's some really cool categories that you can enter in. You know, succulents, of course, have a home here, but also begonias and ferns and some of your standard potted plants. But we really want to make sure that they're not huge plants. Bigger does not mean better, and especially for my back and the volunteers' backs, we don't want anything bigger than a 4-gallon pot. And if it's a very heavy plant, you're going to be required to move it around the exhibit hall. Because we don't want to break your plant, but we also don't want to break our backs. And so if you really want to make sure that your plant is ready to enter into the fair, the best thing to do is repot it earlier in the season. You want to think about May to June, so now, and make sure that your plant has time to root in, because your plant is going to struggle or slow down after you repot it. But once it gets established, it can really jump up and get growing really fast. And you can also kind of up the fertilizer. If you're going to enter into the fair, if you're watering with a liquid fertilizer once a week, and the old adage is weekly, so you're going to water once a week with the fertilizer, but it's going to be about half of what is recommended on the label. And you also want to make sure that you're not only watering with that fertilizer. You want to make sure that you are watering with clean water in between fertilizing, because otherwise you get a buildup of salts in your pot and then your plant can struggle. So that's no good. And you want to make sure you're keeping your plant evenly moist if that's what it requires, especially if you're keeping it outside. It doesn't always rain every week, unfortunately. So you want to make sure that it's consistently watered. Otherwise, again, it will slow down and it will cause the leaves to kind of turn different colors that you may not want. And make sure you're giving it the right light depending on what kind of plant it is. I know I keep my plants on my porch in the winter time, and that first month outside, I do get some leaf burn. So if you are going to plan on entering a plant into the fair, just make sure that you're not changing any of the growing conditions dramatically running up to the fair. And before you come in, make sure that you are taking off those ugly leaves and those weird branches. We are not going to do that for you because that is part of prepping your plant for being entered. And just make sure you're training it through the season. It is okay to stake things. We have had people bring in plants that are kind of staked together. It is up to the judge whether or not that counts against. We don't have any rules against it, but you know, if you can train a plant beforehand, it shows that you're going through some extra effort to make sure it's ready for the fair. The fruits and vegetables section, I feel like this is where Lee County can really shine. I know we have some amazing vegetable gardeners out there in the county, and there are so many different entries. I mean, Susan showed that list of just the apple varieties. We have expanded our pepper categories, our tomato categories. So I'm really excited to see the different things that people are going to enter this year. But make sure that if you do want to enter into the fair, make sure you're growing varieties that are good for growing here in Lee County with our challenging climate. And because the fair is you're entering your vegetables the first weekend in September usually, or the second weekend, it falls about there. But you want to make sure that you are timing your vegetable planting so that you're harvesting at the time of the fair. Surprisingly enough, usually if you've planted in April or early May, most of your plants are probably going to be petered out by then. So you can plant again in mid to late June to try and push that fair date. You should read the packet of your vegetables. See, there's usually like a days to harvest. Check that days to harvest so that way you're timing the best possible produce. Make sure to read the categories and clean your fruits and vegetables before you bring it in. We don't want any grimy, weird, insect-covered ridden plants. And we want to make sure that they look beautiful when we put them out on the display plates. And the judges do look at that. We're not going to shine up your apples for you. So make sure you're just doing that cleaning beforehand. And just for, general, just good habits for growing fruits and vegetables, you're trying to reduce plant stress here in the summertime in North Carolina. And so you want to make sure you've done a soil or a media test for growing vegetables. A lot of vegetable and fruit issues come from bad soil conditions or soil conditions that are not ideal for growing plants. And so you can solve a lot of problems just by doing that. If anybody calls me and asks me, well, I've got this problem with my plant, the first question I'm going to ask them is, have they tested their soil recently? And it is cheap and easy here in Lee County and across North Carolina from April 1st until November 30th. It is free to test your soil. And all you have to do is come here to the extension office, grab a soil box. It has the directions on it. It's super simple. Bring your soil box back and we will drive it to Raleigh for you. If you're growing in a raised bed or containers and you're using potting soil or potting media, that is a separate test. That is a $5 test. But if you're growing in the same raised beds over and over and over, and you don't want to remove and refresh the soil every single year, a media test is a great way to make sure you're growing, your media has the right conditions for your plants. And the reason that there's a difference is because the soil test that they do on the soil in the ground is different than what they will do on stuff growing in a container or raised bed. Also, make sure you're applying mulch and making sure everything's getting evenly watered. Even watering can solve a lot of problems with plants, especially with diseases and insects. Diseases and insects love stressed plants, so reducing plant stress can save you a lot of issues. And then make sure you're always scouting for pests and diseases. It's easy to catch an insect problem or a disease problem if you're starting to notice it early, rather than coming back too late. I will say that I am growing tomatoes and I saw my first tomato hornworm yesterday. So they're there. And Avery, I think last year, I don't know if you remember this, but we did have some ornamental peppers entered into the regional fair. And as the peppers were sitting in the exhibit hall throughout the week, there was a tomato hornworm that had found the peppers and had defoliated all of the peppers by the time they went home. I think I picked off 7, just so they were sitting in the exhibit hall. All the peppers survived. Everybody was fine, but everything's good. And finally, the cut flowers and the foliage, you're going to treat those like your vegetables. Cut flowers have become really popular. We're really fortunate here in the Sandhills region. We have almost 25 cut flower growers, and they're growing all sorts of different things, not just annuals, but perennials and flowering shrubs. And those flowering shrubs and flowering perennials can also be entered. So if you have a flower garden just in your backyard, you can enter into the cut flower and foliage sections. I know that I did. And just make sure you're reading the categories and think outside the box. Avrin, I know you're really excited about your unusual container category. I think what you had what was it last year? You had a boot and a percolator, an old percolator. And I did a little mint container, and I think we won. But make sure bigger is not always better. We had a lady who brought in a huge plant. And she technically was within the boundaries of what we defined as a stem, but it was just so unruly, and it really didn't look as good as some of the other entries. And so she was really surprised that she didn't win the blue ribbon when she came back. So, be reasonable with everyone. And then, of course, just as with the vegetables, make sure you're trying to reduce that plant stress. So apply even watering, making sure you're mulching and making sure the soil is appropriate for the plants that you're growing. So we hope to see you at the fair. I'm really excited about the potential for all the entries this year. 1,800 entries in all of the different places across the fair. That's amazing. But I think that we can push 2,000 this year. I really think that we can. And you can win some money. And you get cool ribbons. So there's lots of fun that you can have. So before we go, Bob, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, just we're awfully excited about being able to present it again this year, and hope to see everybody out there, all 31,000 of you.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you, everybody. I hope to see you there.